267-495-4866 is the voicemail line. You can call and leave a voicemail anytime you want. This is the Doug Karns program here in the home stretch. We were just doing the Rick Santorum interview from GBTV, which I kind of joined at the wrong time of the interview just because it's kind of fluff at the beginning. I'm just trying to give you guys a sense of the decent character that Rick Santorum is. He's not perfect. He's not the perfect candidate. Is that I really wish there was somebody better in the field. But for right now, this is what the Republicans have. And I'd rather have more of a libertarian. But listen, that's for right now, this is who we got. And I think he's the best shot we have. So I'm just trying to play a little bit because I think some who listen to this show might not know Rick Santorum as well as I do, at least from what I read. So I just kind of want to give you his personality. We'll play a little bit more of this, and I want to end the show with the demands of the 99% because it's ridiculous. For college-educated people, they are such dummies. They really are. Big, fat dummies. The money is well wasted. Now I know why they want the government to step in and pay for their college tuition. All right, so let's rejoin Rick Santorum and Glenn Beck here on GBTV.
One of the concerns that I have, and I know it's one of the questions from the audience, is where you stand on the Fed, where you stand on the central banks, and what's going on. How do you stop this?
Well, I think you got to put the Fed back in the business of just managing the money supply for the purposes of holding inflation in check, period. What we did with the Humphrey Hawkins bill back in the 1970s was to add a second mission to the Fed, which, in my opinion, politicized the Fed, which also gave the Fed the power to compensate for the policies of the left that slow down the economy and cause more unemployment. And by pumping money in there to try to create a healthier economy that employs more people.
Why wouldn't you end the Fed?
People ask that question all the time. Here's what I would say. Let's take a step at a time. Let's look and see whether if we eliminate the dual role, which I think is your concern with the Fed, my concern with the Fed, which is that are they pumping money out there, propping up this economy, and we're seeing a degradation of prices, and are we going to see a cataclysmic hyperinflationary situation? And right, oh no, it's a legitimate thing.
And they're doing it unchecked. I mean,
But here's what I would say: is if the Fed's only mission was dollar stabilization, then I would make the argument they probably wouldn't be doing what they're doing right now. But they're doing what they're doing because, unemployment is above 8% for a historic 30-some months, and there's a huge pressure from the politicians, from the president. Hey, we need some help here. And so, I would just say, let's remove that, I think, improper delegation of authority to the Fed, mission of the Fed, and get them back to sound money. And I think at least at that point, we can say for those who want to see the Fed thrown out, those who want to hold on to the Fed, this is a way you might be able to bring people together and say, well, let's try this, see how that goes, and try to move forward on that.
All right, so you know me, I want to end the Federal Reserve as fast as possible. I mean, I want to take everybody out of the building and just set fire to it, and then never remember it ever again. But I'll take Rick Santorum on this. If he would become president, I would hope he would get to this point where, see, the Federal Reserve, they are causing inflation day after day after day. They just keep ordering more money to be printed, and then they pump it into the system. Now, the reason why we haven't seen any of that major inflation yet, which there has been some. I mean, look at peanut butter. It rose 20% in just 1 year in cost. Food prices are going up. Everything's going up. I mean, like I said months ago, a pack of plain white T-shirts used to cost me $6. Now it costs me almost $16 for just a pack of 5. Everything's going up. Clothing, food, gas. the essentials for living. And it's all because of the Fed. Well, I mean, it's the government also, but I'm just saying they are creating the problem because we have so much debt, and we keep propping up the economy by pumping money into it, which means we're not taking any of that money out. When you have more or something, it's worth less, and we just keep pumping in there. That is going to destroy our economy one day. We're going to have a hyperinflation. So I'll go with Rick on this, saying, listen, you take all power away from the Fed. They have no power. They can't do it because that's what they do now. They don't answer to anybody. They don't answer to Obama. They don't answer to Congress. It's not in their charter. They're their own entity, and they handle the money supply. We can't do anything about it. I mean, congressmen and senators have tried to do something about it, and they can't. It's impossible. So what we got to do? We got to destroy the charter. Just take it off. And if Rick, listen, I'll go with this. If you just want to have the Fed concentrate on stabilizing the money supply, so if they come up with their own formula of how much money they destroy each day and how much they print, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that for right now. And if that doesn't work, we disband the Federal Reserve. And I think that's a good compromise because hardcore libertarians like myself would love to see the Fed to just go. Because before the early 1900s, there was no Federal Reserve. There was no centralized Bank of America. This charter was created by Woodrow Wilson, and it's totally screwed us up in 2012. It took 100 years to get here.
When do people, Ben Bernanke and the Fed's 4 other governors held 2 public meetings since July 2010. On 45 of the 47 of the draft or final regulatory measures during that period, they emailed their votes in to the Fed's secretary. They didn't even meet on them. The Fed held 47 separate votes on new regulations, sweeping changes, biggest changes they've made since the Great Depression, and nobody even talks about it. There are no checks and balances here. How is this not a criminal organization? I mean, because what they're doing to us and the rest of the world, these central banks all around the world, are destroying. It's the biggest robbery, the biggest heist in human history.
I agree with the issue of transparency of the Fed. I've supported in the past and support now the idea that the Fed should be accountable and should be subject to an audit. To go that one step further and say, well, let's abolish the Fed and return to a gold standard. I do have some concern about that, only because the production of gold is...
You can't afford the lifestyle we have on gold.
Well, the problem is the idea in the gold standard was that that gold would increase as economic growth increases.
Right.
That's not necessarily true anymore. I mean, we don't have a lot of gold supplies in this country that we can increase as the economy increases. And
all right, so first of all, have you heard any other politician talk like Rick Santorum? He knows his stuff. He knows about the gold standard. Whoever talks about the gold standard in detail, we've left the gold standard over 70 years ago, and he knows all about it. And what they're just trying to say here is that, we don't have enough gold to back our money up. Because that's what we used to do. We used to say for every dollar we have gold to back that $1 up. But for the lifestyle we have today with iPhones, TVs, Xboxes, big houses, luxury, there's not enough gold to back those dollars up. So we need to come up with a different way. So maybe that needs to be argued. But like Glenn said, this is a criminal entity, which the Federal Reserve is. They are screwing us and our children's future right down the tubes because they just keep pumping money and running policies that destroy our economy. It's terrible. And speaking of criminals, now that we're done with the Rick Santorum, and to move on from Rick Santorum, I didn't get to play everything I wanted to play. Maybe we'll touch on it next week. But he does admit a couple times that he's wrong, and I love that about a politician. He owns up to Glenn and says, listen, I was wrong on that. And that's what we need more of. We need somebody that says, listen, I was wrong on this. This is what I thought. Turned out not to be, and I take full responsibility for. That's the kind of politician that we need as president. All right, so anyway, I wanted to finish up the program with reading the Occupy Wall Street's demands that just came out this week. And the first one will just blow your mind because it, on the outside, and I used to believe this years ago, that, why don't you just do this? Because this will just fix everything. But their first demand was raise the minimum wage immediately to $18 an hour, create a maximum wage of $90 per hour to eliminate inequality. Now, first off, before I tear this apart, I'm pretty sure $18 an hour and $90 an hour is still inequality. I could be wrong. I could be doing the math wrong. I probably didn't carry the one or move the two over here. But I'm pretty sure if they want to eliminate inequality, $90 an hour maximum wage and $18 an hour minimum wage, there's a little bit inequality in the middle there. But what do you think happens to this economy if every business had to pay their lowest employee $18 an hour? Now, I'm not sure if you guys know this. I'm pretty sure I trust this in my listeners, that they understand how business works. But a business, to stay afloat, needs to bring in more money that they put out. So if they were putting out $8 an hour now for their minimum wage, and all of a sudden have to put out $18 an hour, that is a huge bill that they now have to pay for every month that they weren't expecting. You're looking at businesses folding up. And not to mention, for all you college idiots out there, and when I say idiots, I mean it in the nicest way, but $18, what do you think that's going to do to your jobs? Or the high schooler jobs, everybody wants to work in high school so they can pay for the little fun times, with their cell phones and all that. Well, guess what, Jack? You ain't getting hired at $18 an hour. Because as a business guy, if I was an owner, I'm hiring the best person I possibly can find for $18 an hour. So you're looking at even higher unemployment with younger people. Because let's admit it, when I was in high school, I was a jerk. I didn't work my hardest. I didn't do my best. So I ain't hiring somebody that was 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old. I want them to mature a little bit and get out of their awkward phase. Because I ain't wasting $18 an hour just to pay for that riffraff. So you're looking at even more unemployment with the $18. You're going to be more selective on who you pick. And it happens each year when minimum wage goes up. I mean, imagine McDonald's. Imagine the price of a Big Mac if they had to pay all their employees $18 an hour. You're talking about massive increases to prices of all goods if that happens. You have runaway inflation at that point between the Fed and $18 an hour being paid. It's not good. Not good at all. And these college graduates, college dumbasses don't get that. They just think, it's just more money for us. Well, guess what? That more money is not going to buy you a Big Mac at $40 per Big Mac. Not going to do it. All right, and that's it for the show. We'll see you next week here on the Doug Karns program.